Hello, everyone. I'm Mystery.
And I'm Milton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we are the Duality of Men.
Today, we're talking about the duality of men and health because obviously, health is very important. We're all alive. We would all like to stay that way, and it's important to take care of yourself.
hmm Both physically and mentally.
Yes, very much so. Unfortunately, this is going to be a bit of a shorter episode because I have family stuff I need to take care of. But let's talk about general health. And unfortunately, here in America, people haven't been taking care of their general health really all that much. I believe health has been on the decline in this country for like the last 20, 30 years.
hmm
And because I know the average weight of the American man is much higher than it was in, say, like the 1950s.
Which is somewhat absurd, frankly. Although, in fairness, some of that has to go down to the food manufacturers because they weigh everything down with essentially corn byproducts, usually high fructose corn syrup, and that's pretty much as good as literally just guzzling butter every day, pretty much.
True, true. But you also have to consider that a lot of the food that we do eat don't have necessarily the nutrients that are required. They are um, nutrient deprived, and so some people will like eat more to try and make up for the nutrients that they're missing, but also that's more calories. So
hmm
you're going to see an
and they
increase
don't
in weight.
and they don't do enough physical activity in order to burn off said calories, which translates to fat. Which I just want to say, from an evolutionary perspective, fat is not the enemy. Fat is a good thing, and it has been a good thing for millennia. The problem is uh, our instincts and our metabolism still think we're living in the Stone Age because evolution doesn't move very quickly. So when you were living, on the plains of Africa several 100,000 years ago, and famines were common, fat was a very, very good thing. But in a paradise of supernormal stimuli, like we're living in now, where food is not scarce, in fact, food is abundant beyond measure, at least in the West, it's the same instincts that led us to eating high calorie food, so that we could then, survive long enough to burn it off, are now leading us to overindulge in every foul thing that the processed food companies can pour into us. Which, again, it must be said that some of this is the food manufacturer's fault, but as the old saying goes, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, and regarding the evolutionary aspect, I mean, for thousands of years, humans had to do lots of intense labor in order to survive. They had to, farm, raise animals. They had to
Outrun
build how.
predators, etc., etc. Yeah.
Yeah, and now we've mastered the world. We've created very safe areas from ourselves. But here's the thing: even then, even when we had like just safe places for us to live, just maintaining and obtaining the things we need for everyday life, that still required uh, work and physical labor. But you know, now everything is become very convenient, and even the job we do to earn money a lot of times don't require a lot of
Is
physical activity.
sedentary and very, very much not physically demanding in any way. Also, something worth noting from a historical perspective: a lot of people seem to think that teeth just rot, if you don't brush them often enough, just inherently. But most of the problem with 20th century people's teeth or 21st century people's teeth is the overindulgence in refined sugar. Refined sugar is basically dietary cocaine, guys. Like you can tell because if you look at the skulls of peasants from the Middle Ages, they have freaking immaculate teeth, all things considered. The people with the rotting teeth were the aristocrats who had a diet high in refined sugar, because refined sugar, again, is basically dietary cocaine.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, when they will. often find skeletons, in archaeological digs. They still have a lot, if not most, of their teeth.
Hmm.
And we started adding in sugar to things because sugar tastes good, but it's not healthy for you at all, especially not this processed chemical sugar that has basically been dumped into all of our food.
Again, it's like coca leaves. Like naturally occurring coca leaves are a stimulant similar to coffee, and they were useful for like mountain climbers and stuff. That's where we got coca leaves from in the first place. But when you take coca leaves off of the tree and tinker with them in a laboratory and hyperfocus them for, dozens upon hundreds of times, you wind up with this white powdery shit that will burn holes in your brain. Well, just like that, you take, the sugarcane plant, which is perfectly fine by itself, or you take honey, you tinker with those in a laboratory setting long enough, and you'll get a white powdery substance that will burn holes in your teeth over time.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, like a couple of years back, I made the decision to get off sugar, which I say was very very hard. Like I basically experienced withdrawal symptoms when I was trying to expunge myself
Hmm. Hmm.
of the
Hmm.
refined sugar that was coursing through my body, and you know it is an addictive substance. Like even now that I can kick the habit and I can look at sugary food and say no, like I can still feel like part of me that
The
does
longing is still
crave the
there,
sweetness.
like sugar, must have sugar. Yeah.
Yes, but I just now have the power to say no to it.
When I was 15, I massively overindulged in soda. I was absolutely addicted to Mountain Dew to the point that I would have withdrawal symptoms if I didn't take it often enough. And it got to the point where it was messing with my sleep schedule, and it was just it was ruining my quality of life. And so I made the decision when I was like 15 to stop drinking any soda whatsoever, and I never looked back. I still indulge in sweets every now and again, but just the fact of not drinking soda, I think, is a healthy enough decision that I can afford the occasional, cheat day, as it were.
I drink sugar-free soda now.
Yeah, but the problem with sugar-free sodas is very often the artificial sweeteners they put in the sugar-free sodas are actually worse for you than sugar is.
Mm. Well, I don't
The
drink
same
it
thing
that
with It's
often.
the same thing with diet soda. There's a chemical in diet soda. I want to say it's phenylalanine, if I'm not mistaken. That will literally give you cancer. Um, and it's kind of sickening that in the name of health, so many health foods are actually more poisonous for you than the unhealthy version, quote unquote.
Yes, and the thing, I do try to maintain a healthy diet. The problem is all the stuff that's bad for you is very cheap, while all the stuff that's actually healthy and good for you can cost quite a bit of money.
Yeah, it's a king's ransom to keep a healthy diet.
One thing that I would do if I had the space, but I would start growing a lot of my own fruits and vegetables. I had an uncle who unfortunately passed away. He used to garden quite a bit, and he would constantly have fresh fruit,
Mm,
fresh vegetables, and that way, you don't have to pay a bunch of money out to the store. You don't have to
mhm.
worry about what's in it because you know what's in it, and it's a nice hobby to have. It's
Yeah, yeah.
relaxing
There are
and
there are benefits there are benefits to living in a rural area. We have farmers markets all over the place around here, and some of the fruits you'll get from like a farmers market or an apple orchard when apples are in season are some of the most delicious fruit you will ever eat, but also B, very, very good for you. And incidentally, all those morally superior vegan brats who might or may not be listening to this, your food, if you actually look at the ingredients of your food, is actually worse than the quote unquote appalling meat eaters diet. Because, for example, oat milk, you would not believe the shit they put into oat milk store bought oat milk to make it taste even remotely like regular milk. It's insane. And by the way, don't ever buy store bought almond milk either. You can make a very good almond milk with just almonds and water and a blender and like a cheesecloth or filter.
Yes. Well, I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't drink cow's milk. But also, I just don't like the idea of milk from a nut, so I just do not drink milk.
See, I could never do that because I drink probably a half a gallon of milk a day. I have a very healthy addiction to milk.
Is this dairy milk or
Yes, I
uh,
I I again I don't drink store bought nut milks because I know what's in store bought nut milks, and it's poison basically. Um, I would drink homemade almond milk if I could ever buy enough almonds to make it, but I prefer just regular old good old fashioned cow's milk. Obviously, if you're lactose intolerant, I can understand why that wouldn't appeal, but milk is a very good thing. Milk is in many ways more healthy for you than water.
well, regarding the whole vegan thing, I just don't see vegan food as like, appealing. The, the vegetable dishes, that's fine, but a lot of the like fake stuff, like the Beyond Meat, like that's just nasty, and you know it's nasty. That's why you have to lie to yourself and treat it like it's
and
meat when
and
you know
and
it's not.
again, not only does it taste off and wrong for you, if you actually look into the manufacturing process of a lot of the Beyond Meat or plant-based meat substitutes, they are they are basically made of the stuff that factories normally throw out, and they're not. And unlike meat uh, substances, they're not regulated as heavily by the FDA. So not only is it not as good for you just based on what it is, it's also not as good for you because it's basically you'd be better off lacing actual meat with rat poison than eating a lot of the plant-based meat substitutes. There's a YouTube channel that I recently discovered and that I really like a lot. It's called Evil Food Supply. They make like old school like Food Network documentaries about um the manufacturing of certain foods, and you would not believe the cost-cutting measures the large scale food industry makes. It's kind of horrifying, and that's not even getting into the current craze, which is the eat the bugs craze.
You know, I am I am a meat eater. I love a good steak, good chickens. Every once in a while, a good pork chop. But you know, the price of meat is getting a lot more expensive, probably because they are trying to push us into eating the bugs. But you know, I've seen a lot of people say that the meat that you get store bought in like a meat packing plant isn't as nutritional as say organic farm fresh steaks, which I get. The problem is, like we mentioned before, like getting the right stuff is just difficult because one, you have to
Yeah, the
find
good
it, and
shit
two, it's
is
more
the good
expensive.
shit is too expensive for those of us who are actually, the middle and working classes. You have to be what I call a posh cunt to afford the farm to table type stuff in a lot of ways.
And then people like who do go on and on about eating organic, like they look down on you because you're not eating organic. Like, mother, if I could afford to eat, you know, the freshest stuff, I would, but I don't because I work for a living.
Yeah, because some of us can't blow our nose with $20 bills or $100 bills, your majesties.
And
Like I would love to allow ethical concerns to dictate what I purchase and what I don't, but unfortunately sometimes, in the real world, ethics is a moral abstraction that is a luxury only afforded to the posh.
now I've seen online that there are services that you can pay into where like once a month they will like ship you like fresh meat from a farm. Problem is those services usually cost like a couple $100 a month.
And what with the current shall we call it Bidenflation going on, who has a couple extra $100 a month to just throw away on stuff?
Yeah, I mean, first you got to worry about rent, gas, um, you know, other foods that you have to buy. It's getting to be a lot. And
Hmm.
you know, if you grew your own stuff, you know, had like a garden where you could grow your own vegetables, you could like save some for yourself, sell the rest, and then maybe over the course of the month you could like that would be enough to pay for the meat subscription.
Hmm.
But even disregarding what people eat, you know, people aren't getting enough exercise. And as we mentioned, we are living a more sedentary lifestyle, which is why it's even more important to actually make the effort to get in some exercise.
Hmm. I'm lucky in the sense that, and this is the weirdest of weird pieces of secondary luck I think it's ever possible to have. But because of my disability, it takes my body more energy to move than it does most people. So just by doing, what most people would take for granted, my body burns like twice the amount of calories as a normal person does.
The silver lining around the storm cloud.
Yeah, the silver lining of I'm disabled, but that also means that my body is kind of shit and takes up twice the energy to do normal shit. But that also means that just walking around day to day for me is the same as running a marathon for most people.
Yeah, I do try to get in my exercise. Um, I get up at 5 in the morning and I go to the gym about 4 times a week, which initially really sucked because, like most people, I enjoy sleeping.
Uh huh.
But once you get into the routine of it, it's actually not that bad, and you do find kind of feel bad when you don't do it. You
Mm.
feel lazy, but I've definitely seen major improvements in my health ever since I started doing this. The only problem is that sometimes you can, with going to the gym, you can do too much. You can push
And it'll
yourself too
plateau.
far. Not even necessarily plateau. It'll be detrimental. Like the reason why I wasn't able to do the show last week is because I had just gone too far in the gym and I had literally no energy as a result. My body was in just like complete shutdown recovery mode. I
It's
was
like
so weak.
we did all the work. We're done. Go away.
Don't you don't understand how weak I was last Wednesday. I was so weak you could have beaten me.
I I think you might be giving me a little bit too much credit, but okay, fine. That's that's a good visual, if nothing else.
Yeah, and so it really is important to take time that after you let your body work out to also give it time to heal while
Hmm.
also making sure that you don't get into the habit of just not going because it's important to keep up the routine.
Hmm. Um, funny bit of personal backstory. When I was in elementary school, I used a wheelchair. When it came time to go to middle school, I decided that I was going to make the lifestyle choice to stop using a wheelchair and use a walker instead. The first 3 days when I in middle school, decided to use solely the walker, my feet were so swollen that I literally had to soak them every night for a week. Just something like that can take it out of you if you're that kind of person who just doesn't get much exercise. Even even something as simple as that can do you in.
Yeah, but did you eventually get accustomed to it?
Yeah, no, I eventually got accustomed to it. I mean, I was tired literally every day I came home from school, which often made my homework a pain in the fucking ass to do. But yeah, usually when I came home from school, I was so exhausted that I would literally just get in the door and just fall to my knees and just crawl the rest of the night because I was just done moving. But yeah, it was a worthwhile choice. Don't get me wrong, and I hate that I ever used a wheelchair, frankly. But even so, it was one of those things of like, this is good for me, but God, do I hate doing the right thing sometimes for the things when I was in school.
Yeah,
When I went
I know.
when I went to college, I finally just broke down and was like, fuck it, I'm not walking uphill and downhill every day. I'm getting an electric scooter, which may
Yeah,
have been
because
a lazy choice, but at that point I was like, it would literally kill me. Like I once tried to go around a quarter mile track for gym class, and I literally spent the rest of the day in the nurse's office because it damn near killed me.
I mean, I feel you. I mean, college campuses can be big places, and classes can be from one end to the other. That would be murder on one.
Yeah,
I can
and
tell
it
you.
was it was multiple buildings and everything, so it was just like I could nearly kill myself trying to make this work, or I could be a human for 5 seconds and get myself an electric scooter. I opted for the electric scooter because just like no exercise whatsoever can be a massive detriment and is a massive detriment. There is also the other end of like, don't kill yourself just to try to stay, in shape, guys. Because there are people on the other end of the scale who will literally work themselves into a heart attack or a pulled muscle or something just because they would rather nearly kill themselves in the gym rather than be sedentary, which I can respect in principle, but at the same time, if you're killing yourself in the name of health, you have to wonder how you're defining health at that point.
Yeah, and speaking of defining health, let's talk about something that really, really irks me: the so-called fat positivity movement. Just the the greatest sign of cultural decay that exists in modern society.
Well, it's,
Like
it's often not
you
even
should,
it's often not even fat acceptance. It's obesity acceptance because that's the thing. We all are a little bit chubbier than I think we would prefer to be. Even the fittest of the fit guy wants to keep his body fat percentage down in the single digits and so on and so forth. But like fat acceptance seems to apply mainly to people who are straight up obese. Now, obviously, there are glandular problems to be considered, and there are metabolism problems to be considered. And if you're one of the people who has a metabolism problem or a glandular problem, you have all of my sympathy in the world. But for every one of the people who is on the high side of fat, low side of obese, just because they have a glandular or metabolistic problem, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of people who consider being a fat prick to be a virtue. And I will tell you, as a disabled person, there is nothing, absolutely nothing in this world that pisses me off more than people who get a handicap placard and an electric scooter for no other reason than because they are too fat. They essentially obese themselves into the state of being disabled, and they want to put themselves in the same category as someone like me, who, not to play the victim, was born with a categorical physical disability. Thank you very fucking much. And there are so many times when me and my mom have gone somewhere, or me and my friends have gone somewhere, and we need the handicap spot because my ability to walk is somewhat limited, and no handicap spots are available. Not because there are a bunch of handicapped people around, but because there are a bunch of obese brats around who just obese themselves right into a disability by their own choices.
You know, for me personally, uh, it all started whenever I was a kid and I had hurt my leg and I was laid up for a while.
Mm,
But you know, so I wasn't active, but obviously I was still eating because
mm-hmm,
people need to eat. So that caused my weight to increase, and you know, it was something that I struggled with for quite a long time until a couple of years ago. I just made the decision that I was going to do something about it, and I've lost like 50 pounds so far.
mm-hmm,
But still have a long way to go to get to the weight where I want to go down. But
mm.
it really just pisses me off when like people just say that no, instead of doing something to fix my life to improve my health to you know do the virtuous thing and try and do the thing that is hard but that is good for me. I'm
Rewarding,
just
yeah.
Yes, I'm just going to yell at the world and tell them to don't be mean to me, and I should be perfectly fine just engaging in sloth and gluttony.
Yeah, and not only that, but some of those fat acceptance people will take it the one step further and go, it is moral to be repugnantly obese, and it is immoral to even want to be fit. Like we've already covered the people who claim that any sort of idealized fitness culture, or love of masculine beauty in terms of fitness is fascist iconography or some shit. Like remember the reject modernity, embrace masculinity backlash, and how
Y-
it was fascist iconography to want to admire masculine beauty of any kind.
yeah, I mean that just that is by people who are either too lazy to do the necessary work or are too immoral as to see why doing what is hard is a good thing.
Yeah, it's just like it it takes a special kind of narcissist to not only go, I am fine being however I choose to be, which on that level I have minimal disagreements with it, but it takes a special kind of narcissist to go that one step further and go, actually I am moral to essentially be the physical, lowest common denominator, and you are immoral for even trying to be presentable in any way.
I think one of the things that disgusts me most is how the culture is propping this up and pretending about how you know beautiful at any size. Look at these grotesquely overweight fashion models that we're going to put on a runway. I mean, look at. I can't believe people actually delude themselves into thinking that Lizzo is attractive.
And here's the other end of it, and this is going to be the harsh thing that's probably going to get me accused of being a fascist somehow. But beauty is a part of health, and health and beauty are interrelated in a lot of ways. Doesn't mean there's a one size fits all beauty standard. Like you have people who are beautiful and skinny, and you have other people who are beautiful and jacked as hell. But beauty and health kind of go interrelated. And so, yes, there is a level at which ugliness and unhealthiness are related. And I find it shocking that you can't even say that beauty and health are related anymore. Like, as though beauty isn't the like surface level equivalent of health, or vice versa. Like, Jesus Christ.
And I just want to say that it's one thing to have like a few extra pounds that you might want to lose, but we're talking about people who are genuinely like
That's why I made the distinction earlier.
ridiculously obviously overweight.
Yeah, the difference between fat acceptance being, we're all a little bit more overweight than we would prefer, versus straight up obesity acceptance, which is what it very often turns into. It's not it's not even the Homer Simpson style body type of someone who's in, middle aged and past their prime. It's straight up, if you look like you would need a crane to get out of bed in the morning, that's somehow a good thing. And again, there are health reasons why some people are obese, like diabetics, especially in their old age. They have a easier time putting on weight and a hard time getting rid of it. I know my grandma was the same way. She was diabetic and she couldn't help being overweight. But even so, for every one of those who has a legitimate health-based reason why they just can't help it and why they have to make the best of it, there are people who consider fatness to be a virtue, like they're goddamn, like they're Slaneshi demons from Warhammer 40K or something. They worship excess as though it's a virtue in and of itself.
Yeah, and you know, personally, not to necessarily put one sex over the other, but I feel like men are just generally more honest when a friend of theirs needs to lose weight.
Yeah.
Whereas I've seen a lot of women say how their overweight friend is just as beautiful as the most attractive friend in the group.
Well,
It's
here's the
obviously
here's
not true, and you're
yeah
doing this person a disservice by lying to them.
yeah here's the other half of that, and it always does seem to go back to this. I think part of the reason why men are more honest is because men are considered less sentimentally valuable than women, whereas women are basically considered beautiful by default, and you have to go out of your way to spite that in order to be considered an ugly woman. Um, like even extremely old women can be beautiful or can be thought of as at least cute if they have a decent personality. You have to literally be old and ugly and spiteful in terms of personality to be an ugly woman. Whereas a man, if he doesn't if he doesn't keep himself in tip top, Henry Cavill looking shape, someone somewhere will consider him subpar, and there are even some women for whom the literal physical embodiment of Superman on the planet Earth at the moment wouldn't be good enough somehow. Meanwhile, they are fine, looking like the aforementioned Slaneshi demons, and they think there's nothing wrong with this because women are inherently sentimentally valuable, whereas men, as ever, need to do or they're worth nothing. Less than nothing, in fact. They're worth negative value.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen this particular episode of the Whatever podcast, um, but there was this clip going around of this um, trans transgender woman who
Hmm.
was so ridiculously overweight. Like, dude, she didn't even have a chin.
Hmm.
Like, just absolutely ridiculously overweight. And like
Hmm.
this girl next to her who was, you know, incredibly attractive physically. Her, opinions were absolute garbage,
Yeah.
but she was at least attractive physically.
Hmm.
She just kept, you know, telling um this person that they were stunning, that they were gorgeous, and I'm just like, in what universe is this
Now,
person attractive?
I
Like,
get
no,
it to
no.
some
Here's the
degree
thing.
because go ahead, sorry.
Like, I don't know if you've seen this um individual. I don't believe you have, but
No.
I can't. Like, usually, if even if someone's overweight, like you could tell um that if they just lost a couple pounds, they'd be more attractive. I can't even fathom. Like
Hmm.
I looked for the like I tried to see the attractive qualities in this person. I could not find it. There were none to be found.
This reminds me actually of two things. It reminds me of the movie A Beautiful Mind, where John Nash, played by Russell Crowe, was able to figure out some obscure factor of economics based on the fact that beautiful women will surround themselves with less attractive women in order to make themselves look more attractive. Um, and it also reminds me of a Robbie Arnell movie from a couple of years ago, or Robbie Amell movie from a couple of years ago called The Duff, which literally basically canonized the notion that in female friend groups, there's always a quote designated ugly fat friend who is liked mostly for her personality and used to prop up the beauty of the others.
She didn't even have a nice personality.
Yeah.
Like like no, I'm talking about the grotesquely overweight person. Like they were narcissistic,
Yeah.
an overweight transgender narcissist.
Well, it's like the Roald Dahl quote. Um, beauty can be skin deep, but ugliness goes all the way to the ugliness goes all the way down. If a person if a person has beautiful thoughts, they can have a gap tooth and a crooked nose and this and that and the other, but they can still be beautiful from the inside out. Whereas an ugly person happens when, if you have ugly thoughts all the time every day, eventually the ugliness will seep out and show on your face for all the world to see, kind of thing. I forget the exact quote, but there was a Roald Dahl quote that perfectly. It was basically a quote about what we would call physiognomy, which is definitely a thing. And again, that's sort of why I brought up the correlation between beauty and uh, and health.
I mean, I do understand that, and actually, this perfectly the other girl, the one who was more physically attractive, perfectly encapsulates that because although she was young and physically attractive, because of her personality, I wouldn't want anything to do with her
Hmm.
at all.
Yeah,
But
there are two kinds of beautiful people: the people who are beautiful and will probably stay that way because they're actually a decent person. This is the category I would put Henry Cavill in, if anyone's curious. And then there are the people whose beauty will peak in their 20s and then fade like a rock being thrown out of a window into an ocean, because again the Roald Dahl quote about physiognomy. Eventually, their ugliness will seep out and show upon their face.
yeah, and it just whatever I was watching that podcast, like as much as I was, what's a kinder word for disgusted?
Um, Affronted, maybe.
Yes, as much as I was affronted by the overweight person's physical appearance, what made me upset more was that every other girl on the panel just kept lying. Like you were you were causing harm to this person by not telling them the truth. And regarding why men tell each other the truth, I think it's because when a guy has a friend that he genuinely cares about and he's overweight, like men are problem solvers, and he knows that his friend isn't going to be able to solve the problem of being overweight if he's not honest with them.
A blunt tooth is kinder than a sugary lie. And I will say this for me. This is one of the reasons why it was extremely hard for me to learn to trust people as a child, because I was the disabled kid, and therefore everyone was unnecessarily like sugary, almost condescendingly kind, quote unquote, in all circumstances. It got to the point where I would actually not trust people if they ever smiled at me, because I couldn't because so many people around me were so, fake kind all the time. It got to the point where I just couldn't tell the difference between an actual legitimate kind smile and and a devious, condescending, "Oh, isn't he so pitiful?" smile. It made it extremely hard for me to make friends as a kid because I could never trust people because I was always thinking, are you being kind to me because you actually care about me and want to be, do you value me as a person for who I am? Or are you trying to be kind because you pity me because, oh, he's the crippled kid, isn't that so sad? Kind of thing.
Yeah, I can imagine how that would feel, like you're being condescended to.
Yeah. Yeah, it was massively infuriating, and it resulted in me having a visceral hatred for anything that I could call pity. Pity is one of the most disgusting things I've ever experienced because sympathy is a camaraderie shared between equals. Pity is something that someone who thinks they are a superior spares for their inferiors. And that's the best way I can think to describe it. The difference between pity and sympathy.
Yeah, I've heard that with people with disabilities that one of the things that they find the most annoying is when people treat them not as a person but as a person with a disability.
Yeah. When they basically treat them like you would treat a toddler or a baby, but constantly and always. And what's
Yeah.
terrible about it is you can't even often bring yourself to get mad at the person who does it because you know they're trying in their own head to be kind. They just don't know that, like I say, there's that distinction between pity and sympathy. Sympathy is camaraderie shared between equals. Pity is something that a superior has for their inferiors.
I mean, I guess you could try to explain to people that you don't like the certain way people talk to you, but then you got to imagine that you would be explaining it for like
Yeah,
50
I
people and that would
yeah
just get
that that
annoying.
that was something I discovered around the time I was 12 or 13 was if you stop and try to explain it every time it happens, then you are explaining it every 5 minutes, and not only that, but you end up looking like the asshole because oh, he was obviously trying to be nice or she was obviously trying to be nice. Why do you have to be so difficult all the time?
Yeah. Well, it's getting to the point where I'm gonna have to head out. But there is one thing last I want to talk about. This is just a bit of a lighter subject to end on.
Hmm.
Guys, if you do make the decision to be healthy and go to the gym and work out and try to improve yourselves, just one piece of advice: never assist women in the gym because
Oh
they're gonna
God, this thing.
videotape
I
you.
know
You're
exactly
gonna
where you're
wind up
going.
on social media.
Oh
Okay?
my God, the association between men finding women attractive and the male gaze, especially in gym culture, is just in it's 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 insane. It's flabbergastingly immoral. Like you can't give someone a compliment without it being seen as some kind of moral depravity.
You can't even ask a question. There was even this one incident where I saw this on a YouTube video where this woman walked up to this guy and accused him of staring at her. Now, initially, the guy had no idea what was going on because the guy goes on to explain he is blind. He is legally blind. He had a card from the Massachusetts Institute for the Blind.
Ah,
And he tried to explain that to the woman, and she says, like, I don't care. It's still making me uncomfortable. Stop doing it. Like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to not be doing.
this is literally the one scene from Joker where he tries to give the woman on the bus the pseudo affect card, and she just thinks that he's scum.
Yeah, the thing
God,
is,
that movie continues to be far more like prescient and relevant than it probably ever should have been.
the thing is, like she actually goes and gets the manager, like a prepper Karen, and the manager comes back and she says, like, okay, but you can't make people feel uncomfortable in the gym as public space. And he's like, "Sir, I am blind. Here is my card proving that I am
I am
blind. I'm
incapable
not."
of not doing this thing because I can't even see what I'm doing, bro.
It's like I
Yeah,
can't
again,
stare at
it's like
her. I can't stare at anyone.
it is very much like the Joker scene with the super affect card or what or the pathological laughter card. God, uh, again, I'm the quotes from that movie are running through my head of "You get what you fucking deserve."
Like this whole you know gym culture. Don't bother going to the gym has truly gone mad to the point where I've actually seen videos of women who were struggling with equipment or weights, and you could see they're struggling, but nobody lifted a finger to help them.
Because they know they can't. Because if you help, you're a chauvinist pig and a patriarch and a male gazer. If you don't help, then you're a misogynistic, you know, crippler of poor put upon women. So it's a no-win scenario. And in a no-win scenario, the best maneuver is, of course, not to engage with the scenario to begin with.
Yeah, and you know, I think one of the really big problems is that those kinds of things, those kinds of incidents, people being filmed and then put on blast social media as a creep for doing the most innocuous of things. It discourages people from going to the gym, and especially in a culture where we don't get enough exercise and people really do know, go to the gym. It makes the gym like an unwelcoming place for a lot of people who might be intimidated by it whenever they first try out. And the people who do that don't go to the gym because you're not there to actually get healthy. Because if you did, you'd be focusing on your workout, not on posing in front of a camera.
Yeah, especially when you throw in the added oomph of, by the way, if you look like you take care of yourself or you look swole or hyper masculine, then you're a fascist by default because we say so. And again, it goes back to something I mentioned a couple weeks ago of the power women have always had is the abstract power of like the moral pecking order. Women are the ones who socially decide what morality and immorality are. That's why you can have visceral hate-filled contempt for incels and fandom and toxic fandom and this and that and the other. Meanwhile, a gym bro who tries to help a woman struggling with a weight or whatever, or asks to spot her or whatever, he is the villain in that scenario according to the moral pecking order as established by women's social proof.
Yeah, you know, for I've seen a lot of videos of people making jokes out of these incidents, which is good, and it does seem like it's starting to calm down because a lot of these girls got called out online for being Karens and trying to ruin somebody's reputation over some bullshit. So hopefully this kind of thing does die off in the end because I'd love for
It
to get
seems like that
more place.
truly is the counterbalance that men have. Women have the power of moral indignation, but men have the power of mockery or what we would call trolling. I mean, think back to the early days of the anti-SJW movement. What pissed them off more? The people who were trying to be all traditionalist and tradconny about it, or the people who were, the ethnic Pakistanis and the Haya lobster sorts of people who mocked the shit out of their pompous moral indignation.
Yeah, the best way to kill this is through mockery because
Yeah,
that's the one thing that women can't stand is to be the butt of the joke, especially in a large social setting.
yeah. If they're being morally indignant and pompous, mock them. You'll win. That is how you deflate the egotistical balloon of the woman's ego. Is just poke it with the trolling stick.
All right,
Once
it's
again,
good.
the cure for everything is weaponized autism.
Yeah. All right, it's good to the point where I'm gonna have to go. So let's wrap this up. It's been good talking. I really appreciate the fact that we got to do this subject because it's important to me.
Mhm.
Do you have any last things to say?
I just want to I just want to do a public service announcement of one thing to also keep in mind, gents, while you're worrying about your physical health. Mental health is included in physical health, just like we were talking about earlier with the whole physiognomy thing. If your mind is unhealthy, it will show in your body language. It will show in the real world sooner or later. Bad thoughts can make a beautiful person ugly as easily as anything else can. So keep an eye on your mental health as well. And for the love of God, it doesn't matter if people will mock you for having needs and vulnerabilities. If you need help, seek help from whatever source you need to get it from. And learn to laugh at yourself and other people as and when it's necessary. Because again, the proper solution to moral indignation appears to be mockery and trolling. Weaponize the autism. That is the best mental health advice that men can have in the age of feminism run amok.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I have been Mystery.
I've been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator. We have been the Duality of Men. Cheers, guys.
Bye, everybody.